In the mountain town of Red Hollow, Colorado, winter comes early and stays long. On the morning of January 22, 1973, a snowplow driver clearing Highway 6 noticed something glinting in the frost, a small silver bracelet half buried beside the road. When he stopped to pick it up, he saw a set of footprints leading into the woods and none coming back out. By noon, police had found what the footprints led to: a young woman, face down in the snow, her coat torn, her gloves missing. Her name was Martha Ellison, a 26-year-old graduate student who had gone missing 2 days earlier after leaving the local library. Her case should have been straightforward, but for reasons no one could ever explain, the evidence gathered that week, fibers, photos, personal items, was packed into a single cardboard box and mislabeled unassigned property 1973. It sat unopened for half a century, until a new intern found it. In 2023, Detective Noah Hartley, a veteran investigator with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, was overseeing the reorganization of old archives when a box caught his attention. The handwriting was faded, the tape yellowed. On the lid, scrawled in pen, "Do not reopen, case 14-73E." He opened it anyway. Inside, neatly sealed in plastic, were a scarf, a film canister, and a bundle of photographs labeled Scene, Red Hollow Bridge. Each photo showed the same chilling image: Martha lying in the snow, her hand outstretched toward the camera. But one photo was different. It was taken from a higher angle, as if shot by someone watching from the trees. There was no record of who had taken it. Hartley had worked hundreds of cold cases, but something about this one felt alive, like it had been waiting for someone to look. The scarf carried a faint scent of perfume and a single thread. Of course, blue wool, not Martha's clothing. The film canister, when developed, revealed 5 exposures, photos of the mountain trail taken during daylight. The final frame was blurred, a figure approaching in the distance. "It's like she saw him coming," Hartley said quietly. The original case file had been destroyed in a 1980 records purge, leaving no witness list, no suspects. But the coroner's summary survived: manual strangulation, death estimated between 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. That night, Hartley went home, unable to shake the image of her outstretched hand. 2 days later, the forensic lab called with results from the scarf. The blue wool thread didn't match any of Martha's clothes, but it matched a Red Hollow police uniform from the 1970s. Hartley froze. If that was true, the killer hadn't been a stranger. He'd been one of them. The name surfaced through an old payroll ledger. Officer Dean Rucker, employed with Red Hollow PD from 1972 to 1974. His record ended abruptly with a notation: transferred, personal request. When Hartley looked deeper, he found that Rucker's transfer wasn't to another department. It was to Federal Park Patrol, and he'd resigned less than a year later. No disciplinary action, no investigation, just silence. Rucker had died in 1999. But when Hartley contacted his widow, she revealed something strange. "He used to have nightmares," she said. "He'd wake up saying, 'She saw me. She saw me on the bridge.'" The bridge. That word hadn't appeared in any report, except one: the photo envelope marked Red Hollow Bridge. Hartley and his team drove out there the next morning. The bridge was old, its wood swollen with moisture, half buried under decades of snow. But under the main beam, lodged in the frozen dirt, was something metallic, a broken police badge fragment. The number was still legible. It belonged to Officer Dean Rucker. The case shifted overnight from forgotten file to full criminal reopening. DNA analysis on the scarf thread matched partial samples from Rucker's personal effects, preserved in his widow's storage box. It was enough for confirmation. After 50 years, the mystery of Martha Ellison's death was finally solved. But the truth that followed was worse than anyone imagined. Because the evidence box hadn't been lost by accident. It had been hidden on purpose. Records showed that in 1973, the original investigating officer, Sheriff Alan Kipp, had ordered the case filed indefinitely. Kipp retired in 1981, leaving no explanation. When contacted by phone in 2023, he was 91 years old and still living in Colorado Springs. Hartley met him in person. The old man was frail but sharp, his eyes clouded with something that wasn't quite regret. "You found the box," he said before Hartley even introduced himself. "You knew?" Hartley asked. Kipp nodded slowly. "She wasn't supposed to die." He explained that Rucker and Martha had known each other. She'd been helping him study for a criminal justice exam. He had feelings for her, Kipp said. She didn't return them. He lost control that night. But Kipp hadn't arrested him. "He was one of my men," he said softly. "The town couldn't handle another scandal. We buried it, just like the snow does every winter." Hartley leaned forward. "You buried her case to protect a killer." Kipp stared out the window. "No, son. I buried it to protect this place from itself." The confession stunned the Bureau, but Kipp's frailty meant no charges would stick. Hartley left that interview with a single thought. Some secrets freeze deeper than death. When the final report went public, the town of Red Hollow was forced to face the truth it had ignored for 50 years. Residents gathered outside the courthouse, holding candles for Martha, whose death had once been a rumor, now an exposed wound. One woman said through tears, "We thought she just slipped. Turns out we all did." Later that winter, Hartley returned to the storage room where the evidence box had been found. He opened it one last time before sending it to archives. Beneath the scarf and photos, he found a small, folded note he'd missed the first time, yellowed, faintly smudged, but still readable. It was Martha's handwriting. "If you're reading this, you found the truth. I told him no. Please, don't forget me." Hartley stood in silence, realizing that she hadn't been waiting for help. She'd been leaving proof for whoever would finally listen. He whispered, "We didn't forget you, Martha. Just took us too long to hear." The case of Martha Ellison became known nationwide as the box that waited. Because sometimes justice doesn't get lost. It just gets left unopened. When the news of Sheriff Kipp's confession broke, Red Hollow, Colorado, population barely 2,000, fell into disbelief. The story made national headlines. Cold case solved after 50 years. Sheriff covered up officer's crime. For residents, it felt like discovering a body beneath their own foundation. Kipp had been the kind of man people named streets after, the voice of every 4th of July parade. Now his legacy was a lie carved into the town's history. Detective Noah Hartley stood in the back of the press conference as state officials announced the closure of the 1973 case. He should have felt satisfaction, but instead he felt something worse. Incompleteness. Because something in that box still didn't add up. After the trial files were archived, Hartley kept digging. He re-examined the inventory of items recovered from the evidence box. Something odd stood out, an envelope labeled Exhibit D. Additional negatives. It was listed in the original 1973 log, but missing. When the box was reopened. When he asked the Bureau's archivist, she said simply, "That envelope was never here." Hartley froze. He'd seen the photo canister labeled Film A, but there had been no Film D. That meant there were more photos. Someone had removed them before sealing the box. He requested the original intake signature from 1973. The name written on the line wasn't Kipp's or Rucker's. It was Deputy Gary Wells, a junior officer who left the department the same week the evidence was boxed. Wells had disappeared from public record in 1974. No forwarding address, No obituary, no pension file, as if he'd vanished completely. Using federal tax archives, Hartley tracked down a Gary Wells living under a slightly altered name, Gareth Weller, age 77, residing in a nursing home in Boulder. When Hartley showed up unannounced, the old man looked up and said, "You're here about her, aren't you?" "Martha Ellison," Hartley said. Weller nodded. "I thought that box would stay shut forever." He confessed that after Rucker's death, Sheriff Kipp had ordered the file destroyed. "He didn't want it haunting the department," Weller said, "but I couldn't burn everything. I kept some photos. I thought maybe one day someone would need them." He pointed to an old leather suitcase beside his bed. Inside were 3 undeveloped film rolls. The photos, once processed, revealed something devastating. Images of another woman, not Martha, lying near the same bridge, photographed weeks before the 1973 murder. Her identity was unknown, but the details were eerily similar. Missing gloves, torn coat, bruising around the neck. The date stamp on the photo margin read December 1972, 1 month before Martha's death. The Bureau reopened the investigation immediately. Fingerprints extracted from the damaged negatives led to a match in a missing persons record from 1972. Ruth Kavanaugh, age 22, a Red Hollow waitress who'd ... vanished walking home after her shift. Her file had been closed due to lack of evidence. Now, half a century later, she had evidence. Weller explained what he remembered. Rucker came in late that December, shaken, said he found a woman in the woods and buried her out of mercy. Kipp told us to keep quiet, said she was a runaway, nobody would miss her. When Hartley asked why he kept silent for 50 years, Weller replied, "Because truth doesn't always free you. Sometimes it just outlives you." He handed Hartley a final photograph from his suitcase. The Red Hollow Police Christmas Party, 1972. In the back row, smiling proudly, stood Rucker and Kipp and Martha Ellison. She'd been a volunteer typist for the department that winter. The connection was no longer speculation. It was systemic. She hadn't just been killed by a cop. She'd been killed by the very department she trusted. And when Hartley presented the new findings, state prosecutors expanded the case to include obstruction, conspiracy, and evidence tampering. Though both Rucker and Kipp were dead, the Red Hollow Police Department faced a full internal audit. Retired officers were questioned, families subpoenaed. One former clerk confessed that she remembered an order from the top to relabel old boxes in 1973. It was one of the largest cold case corruption probes in Colorado's history. But the strangest discovery came when the state crime lab restored one of the last damaged negatives from Weller's film. The image was blurry, but clear enough to show Rucker's police cruiser parked near the bridge. In the back seat, through the reflection of the window, was a figure, Sheriff Kipp, watching. Hartley stared at the photo for a long time before saying he didn't just cover it up. He was there. The revelation reframed everything. Kipp's supposed confession that he buried the case to protect the town had been a lie. He hadn't buried it out of mercy. He'd buried it to protect himself. Forensics found that one of the boot prints preserved in the original crime scene photos was not Rucker's size. It matched Kipp's. It meant the sheriff had helped dispose of Martha's body. When the truth reached Red Hollow, the town split in two, between those who still clung to nostalgia and those who wanted every trace of that history erased. The city council voted unanimously to rename Sheriff Kipp Drive to Martha Ellison Way. At the dedication ceremony, Hartley placed the original silver bracelet, the one found by the snowplow driver, inside a time capsule beneath the new sign. He said quietly, "This is where we put truth, not to hide it, but to keep it safe." Months later, while preparing the final documentation, Hartley received an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single typed page and a Polaroid. The photo showed the Red Hollow Bridge at night, empty, dusted in snow. The message read, "There's another box, 1974. Don't stop." The postmark was from Boulder, the same city where Gary Weller lived. Hartley drove there the next morning, but Weller's nursing home room was empty. He died in his sleep 2 days before the letter was mailed. No one knew who sent it. That night, as Hartley sat alone in his office, he looked again at Martha's final note. "Please don't forget me." He whispered, "I won't, but I think there's someone else waiting." He picked up the phone and reopened the search under a new name, Operation Snowbox. Because if one forgotten box could hide a murder for 50 years, how many more were still sealed? The letter marked "There's another box" changed everything. Detective Noah Hartley knew it wasn't a prank. Whoever sent it, whether Weller before his death or someone else within that decaying chain of silence, was pointing him toward another ghost, still waiting in the archives. He went back to the same storage facility in Denver, where the first evidence box had been discovered. The shelves stretched endlessly under dim fluorescent light, dust swirling in pale beans. Row after row of forgotten cases, victims, suspects, and secrets that never made it to justice. Halfway through aisle 19, he found it. A box identical to the first. Brown, brittle tape, handwriting faded to near invisibility. On the top corner, one phrase written in the same thick marker: "Property RH File 21, hold until further notice." Stamped below it in red ink, 1974. Hartley carried it to the processing table and carefully peeled back the tape. Inside were 4 items. A blood-stained handkerchief embroidered with the initials EM. A 1974 Red Hollow Sheriff's Badge, number filed off. A cassette tape labeled Deputy Review, January 12th. A sealed letter addressed to "The next one who opens this." His hands shook slightly as he loaded the cassette into an old player. Static, then a voice. Deep, deliberate, unmistakably Sheriff Alan Kipp. This department's seen too much in too short a time. The Rucker incident was supposed to be an exception, not a pattern. But now we've got another woman, another mistake. I told the council we'd handle it quiet, same as before. Maybe one day they'll thank me. He paused. I know what people think justice is, but sometimes justice is a quiet room and a closed box. The tape clicked off. The letter inside the box was older than the tape, dated March 1974. It was signed with only initials, EM. The note read, "He said no one would believe me, so I'm writing this for whoever finds it. The sheriff keeps things that shouldn't exist. He says it's mercy. I say it's fear. If you find this, look under the bridge again. There's more than one grave." The name on the embroidered handkerchief, EM, matched the signature. Whoever she was, she knew about the cover-up before anyone else. A search of local records revealed one match: Evelyn Marsh, a 28-year-old reporter for the Red Hollow Gazette who disappeared in the spring of 1974 while investigating inconsistencies in police reports. Her body was never found, until now. Hartley and a forensic team returned to Red Hollow Bridge, the same place where Martha Ellison's life had ended. Under 2 feet of frozen dirt, near the riverbank, they found what the tape and letter predicted: a small grave. Inside was a rusted typewriter, a press badge, and human remains wrapped in a sheriff's department jacket. Dental records confirmed it. Evelyn Marsh. She hadn't just been silenced. She'd been buried wearing the symbol of the institution she tried to expose. The jacket's inner pocket contained a final note, written in pencil. They said the box would stay shut. I hope I'm wrong. Hartley stood by the excavation pit, snow falling silently around the floodlights. It was nearly 2 o'clock a.m., and the wind was sharp enough to sting. He whispered, "You were right, Evelyn. We opened it." Forensic reconstruction tied the fibers on the handkerchief to Sheriff Kipp's personal belongings. The partial DNA recovered from beneath Evelyn's fingernails matched his family line. Indisputable proof he'd killed her before covering up her story. That meant 3 murders. 3 women, 3 boxes, each time. Kipp sealed evidence away and told himself it was mercy. When the state released its final report, the Colorado Attorney General called it the most egregious case of internal cover-up in state history. Red Hollow's police department was officially disbanded and restructured under state oversight. But Hartley wasn't satisfied. He believed there was one more truth still hidden, not in the boxes, but in the words Evelyn wrote. "Look under the bridge again." Those words haunted him. They suggested something she'd seen, or someone. So he returned one last time, alone. The bridge loomed over the frozen river like a scar across the landscape. The water below was black, motionless. Hartley crouched near the beam where Evelyn's remains had been found. The ground looked freshly disturbed, not from their dig, but older, hardened with years of frost. He started digging. Just beneath the surface, he hit something solid. Another evidence tag. The handwriting was faint, but legible. File 73E, supplemental. He brushed away dirt to reveal a small metal lockbox, the same design as the others. Inside was a reel of 8mm film. When digitized, the footage showed Sheriff Kipp and Officer Rucker standing together by the riverbank late at night. Between them, covered in a tarp, was a human figure. The camera was shaky, as if someone had filmed secretly from a distance. At the end of the reel, the camera turned, revealing the face of the person recording. It was Evelyn Marsh. She'd filmed her own killers. The footage became the cornerstone of the state's historical cold case archive. Forensic analysts determined Evelyn had hidden the film beneath the bridge hours before she was murdered. When Kipp said no one would believe her, he was right, because no one ever got the chance to see what she captured. Until now. In 2025, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation held a public exhibit titled "The Boxes That Waited." Each display contained one of the recovered items: Martha's scarf, Ruth's photograph, Evelyn's press badge, and beneath them, a plaque that read, "Justice doesn't expire. It just waits for someone to open the box." At the opening ceremony, Detective Hartley gave the final address. He didn't read from notes. He spoke quietly, but every word carried through the hall. "When I found the first box, I thought it was a mistake, an accident lost to time. I know better now. Those boxes weren't forgotten. They were warnings. Every cover-up starts with someone deciding silence is kinder than truth. But silence is what kills justice, not time." He paused, looking at the display case holding Evelyn's note. They thought the snow would bury it. They didn't count on the thaw. That spring, Red Hollow finally thawed. The bridge, now renamed Ellison Crossing, became a memorial. Locals left flowers, film reels, even typewriter keys as tributes. The town finally spoke the names it had buried for 50 years: Martha, Ruth, Evelyn. Each name etched into the new stone monument read the same inscription underneath. The evidence box was opened. The truth was inside. Late one evening, Hartley visited the site alone. The river was still, the moon reflecting silver on the water. He placed a daisy beside the plaque and whispered the words Evelyn had written half a century ago. "I hope I'm wrong." He smiled faintly. "You were."